up, you guys? Welcome back to the Fumble Live. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We're talking about this Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul fight. I really cannot wrap my mind around why this is even happening. We're also talking about Kevin Durant and how he says he's just paid to take shots. But before we do, subscribe to our channel, tap the bell for notifications, give this video a thumbs up, and leave a comment below. Here's the Fumble Squad. I'm Devin Howard. You can find me on Instagram as @DevinHoward.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jackie Ray. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at JRayTheFanatic.
Now, Jackie, I waited all night looking in the Fumble crew chat to see if there were any taco pictures coming through, and we got nothing. So how did they turn out?
I didn't make them. I actually, because I'm still on my apartment search because I'm like desperate to move by the 1st. So I was texting our producer. I was like, hey, so where do you live? How much do you pay? Like, I was just on this mad rampage to try to find a place. I think I found one. The only thing is it doesn't have a balcony. And that's like one of the things that I want, because where I live now, because I live and work here, I have to keep all my windows closed. It's first floor corner unit. There's homeless people right in front of my window. I just want to be elevated and have a balcony where I can have mimosas on Sunday morning. And so that's my only downfall about this one that I found. But ask Arthur, our producer. I was like, so any ideas? I was obsessed because I really want to find something.
I don't blame you. You remember I had to move in June, and that's when obviously we were still at the height of the pandemic. There was also the weekend that I actually moved into my new apartment was the weekend that the BLM protest was happening in Santa Monica. So there was a bunch of police around the area. My dad and I were just trying to carry in all of my furniture and stuff like that. It was so stressful, and there were we heard people getting shot at the local Whole Foods. And it was just outrageous. So finding a place, and I toured so many apartments when I was looking, and it was just everything had something that was just a little bit off, and it sucks because you can never find exactly what you want unless you're willing to pay a super premium, and even then you still probably have to sacrifice in some areas when you're living in LA because it's such an in-demand area. But I think that if you're in a place that has good energy, you feel comfortable, you could just take your mimosas to the local park, and then you won't have the balcony, but you will be able to enjoy the sun with some champagne and orange juice, right?
Exactly. And this one has a rooftop deck, so kind of makes up for not having the balcony. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need a balcony with a rooftop deck. That's even better.
Right.
Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when's the barbecue happening at your place, Jackie?
Let me know. When I put that deposit down, the planning will begin. So trust me, it's coming.
Hell yeah. Okay, I'm looking forward to that. I'll bring over some Beyond Meat burgers for us to eat. But I actually did Taco Tuesday. I did Taquito Tuesday. I got taquitos, sweet potato taquitos, which were so good, and a skinny margarita. So I celebrated, and it was delicious, and I loved it. But that's enough of that. Let's just jump into the news, because I have been thinking about this Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul fight so much, just trying my hardest to make sense of what's happening here, and I can't. But it has officially been rescheduled. Now, the last time we talked about this fight, it was still kind of up in the air as to when it would actually happen, but now we do know that it's taking place June 6th at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. Logan tweeted out this video promoting the event, so Leo, can we put that up there? So intense. So this is a very interesting situation here, because obviously Floyd Mayweather has not fought professionally since 2017, and that's when he defeated Conor McGregor to earn his 50th career victory. He's been out of the game for a couple of years now, and that makes his return to the ring extremely unconventional, especially considering the person that he's going up against is just an amateur fighter. But Mayweather Promotions CEO Leonard Ellerby, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, said that Floyd Mayweather views this as an opportunity to grow the sport of boxing. He said, quote, "If it brings more eyeballs to the sport, I'm all for it. At the end of the day, it's all about entertainment. This is why I can never be mad at anyone who thinks outside the box. Once you start living in that bubble and only do things inside that bubble, you don't ever have a chance to separate yourself." Now, in theory, this sounds great. Oh, it's entertainment, we're growing the sport. But we've talked about this time and time again on the show. Whenever an amateur tries to force their way into the world of a professional sport, any kind of sport, it kind of takes away from the hard work, the time, the effort, the focus that all of these other people have put in to try and get to that spot. And I also think that if Floyd Mayweather does lose this fight, which doesn't seem very likely, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, because Logan is, I think, 4 or 5 inches taller. He's allowed to have 30 pounds of extra weight. Floyd hasn't fought professionally since 2017, so it's not completely outrageous to think that Floyd could potentially lose. I don't think it's going to happen, but if he does, his legacy is over. And I feel like it's going to be hard to take boxing seriously if Floyd Mayweather walks away from this fight with the L. So let's talk about this, Jackie. Is this the worst career decision that Floyd Mayweather could have made?
So Floyd is 44. How old is Logan Paul? He's like
26 maybe, 25. Yeah.
It's almost a 20-year age difference. Floyd hasn't fought in a while. From what I see of him on social media, he still keeps up his fitness, but I haven't seen that he's really keeping up his boxing prowess. He's more, just staying fit like normal people now. He's not trying to stay fight fit. And when you're fight fit, that takes quite a bit of time. Okay, so Gary says he's 26. So almost, not quite, but almost a 20-year difference. But when you're getting boxing ready, that's months and months and months of preparation. So yes, this has been something that we've been tiptoeing around for a while, but I just can't see in my head Floyd Mayweather taking Logan Paul so seriously that he is training like he's training for a professional fight. I personally can't see him doing that. I personally see him, kind of looking at tapes of Logan Paul, if there's any. I know there's plenty of Jake Paul, but I don't know if there's any of Logan Paul that I've seen. But he's probably just, trying to figure out who Logan is, but the preparation is not there. So y'all saw my immediate reaction when he says, "Oh, I'm trying to, widen the sport of boxing, bring new eyes on the sport of boxing." My initial reaction was, get the hell out of here, man. Stop it. This is the worst way. Because what you're ultimately going to do is turn off real boxing fans. Real boxing fans are furious right now. Real boxing fans feel like you're shaming the sport because this guy is a joke. He's a joke. I don't know anything about him as far as other than, his YouTube stuff. He's just, and once you start bringing people into the sport who this isn't their life's passion, this isn't one, they haven't earned their way. When you fight somebody like Floyd Money Mayweather, you have earned your way up through the ranks. You have won a couple of fights. You have proven that you should be in contention to fight Floyd Money to potentially take his title. And there's other people that have done that. There's other people who are in the boxing world right now who are earning their stripes, who are winning the necessary fights, and they're not going to get to fight Floyd Money because Floyd Money is retired. So you're coming out of retirement to fight this guy who hasn't earned his stripes. It's stupid to me. It's infuriating to me. And I'm telling you, it is going to infuriate real boxing fans. I don't know what he's making, because I know somebody last week, or maybe even earlier this week, said that last week said that this was the lowest paid boxing match that Floyd Money was going to have since the 90s. I don't know if that's true, because I saw that Floyd Money can expect around $100 million for this, while Logan Paul can expect about $10 million for this. So if it's $100 million, then it's like, okay, it is whatever. I saw somebody in the chat said, Logan is good, not a joke. He is a joke. Let me tell you something. If you are not a professional boxer, if I cannot go to your boxing card and see you fighting big names, legitimate names, to get up it to the level where you can fight Floyd Money, you're a joke, and you're making the sport look like a joke. And I don't appreciate that at all. He hasn't earned this opportunity. He hasn't earned the opportunity to fight Floyd Money Mayweather. This is a money grab. And when you're talking about boxing, yes, boxers get paid, but they have to earn the right to fight certain people. Yes, it's an exhibition, but why do it? Why do an exhibition fight? What is the gain for? Because if you're there's no point in doing an exhibition fight if you're really trying to bring more eyes onto the sport of boxing. Because what you're going to get is a whole bunch of people who know them from YouTube, don't know much about boxing at all, are going to watch this fight because they know Logan Paul, and then go right back to not watching boxing anymore. Like, what is the point? This makes no sense to me.
I want to just draw attention to this Joshua Harrison in the chat because he's being extremely condescending. He writes, "It's an exhibition. Nobody gets an L. Geez, stick to being cute, sweetheart." First of all, stick to being an idiot, Joshua Harrison. You're so stupid. First of all, even if it is an exhibition, if Floyd Mayweather loses, it still tarnishes his legacy. You can't sit there and tell me that just because an exhibition, if Floyd is not the one who's winning or is not the one who's just completely pummeling Logan Paul, that it's not going to affect the way people view him. I mean, that's just ridiculous for you to even say that just because it's an exhibition, it doesn't mean anything for either person. So speaking of that, let's talk about best.
One second, but this is what I'm talking about. So he says it's just an exhibition, nobody loses. This is a person who's not a real boxing fan, because I'm telling you, real boxing fans, all of a sudden, if Floyd Money loses this fight, it puts everybody he's ever beaten on this card, all of a sudden becomes in question. Like, has Floyd really been that good? Because that is a criticism Floyd Money Mayweather has received his whole entire career. Everybody says, his hits aren't that hard, this, that, and the third, because he really does make you fight his fight. So if all of a sudden this no name, and I mean it when I say it, this no name guy who hasn't earned the opportunity to fight Floyd, if all of a sudden he beats Floyd, then all them 50 other fights that Floyd has won, those come into question now. And all of a sudden anybody from YouTube can say, hey, I want to fight Conor McGregor. You know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden it means that now, just because you've been on YouTube, you have a right to say something about somebody who has really trained their whole life to do this. But this is what's going to happen. You're going to get a bunch of people who don't know much about boxing saying, oh, it doesn't mean anything, because it doesn't mean anything to them. They don't appreciate boxing for what it is. This is what's going to happen. It's going to be a plague. We're going to get a bunch of this guys running around the earth saying crazy stuff like this.
So let's talk about best and worst case scenario here, because obviously I think the worst case scenario would be to see Floyd Mayweather just crumble. But even if he does walk away as the superior boxer, he walks away with the win or whatever it is, do you think that even does it do anything to serve him and his reputation, or is this just solely a money grab for him?
It has to be a money grab. I mean, if you come out of retirement, you fight somebody like Manny Pacquiao. You know what I mean? If you're going to do an exhibition fight, you fight somebody that we know his name. We know that he is a good fighter. And we're going to tune in to see it because we know it's going to be good. You don't fight somebody that half of the people are going to have to Google Logan Paul. They don't know. People who really like boxing don't even know who Logan Paul is. There's a bunch of boxing fans right now going, Logan, who is this guy? Because they just don't know.
My dad is one of them. My dad never misses a fight. He loves boxing, but that man has no idea who Logan Paul is. He's probably going to pay for this fight. I should tell him, don't pay for it, Dad, because it's not worth it. But he's just probably thinking like, okay, Floyd Mayweather's fighting, I'm gonna watch it. And then he's gonna turn on and be like, what is this guy? Yeah, thank you for reminding me. I should warn him not to buy that one, because he always pays for them and then he sits on the couch by himself because he's in a family full of women. Nobody wants to watch it. Like, my mom is not interested in watching it with him. My sister's not, and I don't even go to San Diego that often, especially now with COVID. So I don't even watch it with him, and he just sits there with his beer, drinks, watches the fight.
That is terrible. I'm gonna need you to sit down and watch boxing with your dad.
I know. I mean, I didn't even start really paying attention to boxing that much until I was moved out of San Diego. So as a kid, it was too violent for me. I was like, ouch, that's painful. But let's see, This Is It had something that he wanted to, he said, what happened to actually moving up the ranks in order to fight a top fighter? And I think that's exactly what Jackie's been saying. There's kind of like, you earn your stripes, which is the phrase that you just used, and it is a little bit interesting. Do you think, Jackie, that it's possible that Floyd Mayweather is going into this fight with the motivation and the intention to pretty much like school Logan Paul, and just to kind of show him like, you can't just decide that you're going to be here one day and think you're going to win? Do you think that might be his motivation, or is he not even really worried about teaching him a lesson.
Yeah, I think his nickname is why he's doing it. He's Floyd Money. And if what I read is true, and again, I haven't confirmed that amount, but if he's getting $100 million to do this fight, that's the only reason that he's doing this fight. He is vain enough that he's going into this thinking that he's an automatic win. But again, I don't know, and I do follow him on social media. I don't know if he is up to boxing training, because being in shape and being in boxing shape are two totally different things. And I don't know what kind of shape he's in right now. I don't know if he's in boxing shape. Sure, he's in shape, but I don't know if he's in boxing shape. And why do you want to teach Logan Paul a lesson? The biggest lesson you could teach Logan Paul? Show him how irrelevant he is and ignore him. That would be the lesson that you teach Logan Paul. And I would love if somebody would teach these Paul brothers that lesson. Just ignore them.
I know. It's easier said than done when they're just all over everywhere. But yeah, I agree with you. Okay, let's move on to our next update. Let's talk about Kevin Durant. So he only took 7 shots in the Brooklyn Nets win over the Toronto Raptors. The final score was 116-103. He still had 17 points on 5 of 7 of shooting, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and he was playing for 33 minutes. It ended up being that 13-point victory, like I just said. But it was kind of unusual to see KD shoot 10 fewer field goals than his season average. But I think the team did come together. It was kind of a well-rounded team effort. But here's what he had to say about that. Leo, can we roll that clip?
A job. I get paid to make the right play every time. I'm not going to get it right every time, but as long as I've been in the league and how many double teams and gimmick defenses I've seen, I have to be able to handle it. So I definitely wanted to get my rhythm going and score a little bit more, but I just try to be patient and take what was there. And, one of those nights where I wasn't going to get a lot of shots up. So I'm just glad we won. I'm glad, guys like Mike and Tyler and Landry.
So KD admits that he would have liked to have taken more shots, but he seems like okay with the fact that he didn't. I like seeing him sound kind of humble about this whole thing. But this is a different way of thinking compared to players who take a lot of shots in every game. Do you think that it's better to take less and make them the way KD did, or take more and just keep trying, to be that kind of star of the team?
Well, I really like what KD said in this post-game interview, because sometimes less is more and sometimes less is just less. Sometimes you're having an off night. Sometimes it's the shots are just not following for you and it's not working. We've seen Steph have those kind of nights where sometimes the shots just aren't falling. That doesn't mean you automatically should take more. It means that you might be having an off night. And it happens. It happens to the best of them. You have an off night, which is why your team is there and your team is supposed to step up and be around you. So I don't have a problem with him taking less shots in this game. Like he said, I would have liked to take more, but that's just not the kind of night that it was tonight. And I'm glad that my other teammates stepped up for me. And that's exactly how it's supposed to go. I got to say, hearing him talk like this is fantastic. It's beautiful because it's showing that, maybe we were really all wrong. Maybe the egos that we thought were going to exist between, KD, Kyrie, and James Harden, maybe the three of them together are just kind of simpatico and they're moving forward because he's cool. It wasn't like he was even speaking out of a level of frustration, like, oh, dang, I wish I would have taken more shots. He's legitimately saying, I would love to take more shots, but, I'm paid to make the shots that I make, and I did that, and I couldn't make more shots, and so my team stepped up for me. This KD, I like this KD. I like him a lot because it's very mature in his thinking. That's the kind of leadership thinking that you want him to have. It's a good look. It's a good look on KD. I'm surprised, but it's a good look.
I agree with you. Like, I watched this clip and I was like, he actually sounds like quite a modest, down-to-earth guy. And, it is unusual because we were all expecting these three guys to go in there and just clash from the get-go. But we've seen them each be able to kind of fall back into a specific role, even if it means their individual stats are not as high as they normally are. We saw that with James Harden, especially when he just joined the team. And it was kind of it was a little bit unusual to see him, scoring less and whatever. So I do think it is a good look. And I think that it is a sign that they all are able to rely on one another. None of them feel like they have to carry the team. And I think that's really important. I actually saw Czech Rana in the chat say it's called having a team you can rely on. And yeah, that's exactly what it is. I think that they're just kind of able to let go of the ego a little bit, let go of the individual stats, because they know ultimately the victory is going to come when they can just, when they're able to kind of share the weight with the people around them. So
let me just get to Mark Law real quick. Let me get to Mark Law real quick, because I'm really starting not to like this dude. He's about to be blocked off this channel in just a hot second, because this guy speaks out the side of his neck. Now, let me tell you something. First and foremost, he says LeBron has the biggest ego. Again, you must not watch a lot of basketball, because LeBron has mentored young people, especially on the Lakers. And he says, hey, when your brother falls, you're supposed to be there to pick him up. That's number one. Number two, you act like you didn't see Kyrie cry like a little girl on the sidelines in 2016. You act like you didn't see that. And number three, you act like KD didn't leave OKC to go to play with the team that he could not beat. So you can stop with the nonsense and actually start watching some basketball, and then maybe we can have a conversation. But until then, just stop trying to hate just for hate's sake, because you're getting on my nerves. Go ahead, Devin.
Do you guys?
Oh, did you hear? I heard that in the background. What was that?
Someone is screaming bloody murder in my building.
Oh, no.
It's a little bit scary.
Probably Mark Law.
Kind of...
It's probably Mark Law. His feelings got hurt, so he's probably screaming outside the door. That's probably what happened.
Oh my God! Yeah, it probably is Mark Law. Relax. Jesus. Oh my God. That was very unsettling. I'm a little nervous for whatever's happening outside. Normally my building is very quiet, so I don't know. But Jackie, so seeing KD's attitude and this more, modest version of himself, what do you think that means for the Nets' future and going into the playoffs? How do you think that he's going to be able to maintain, all of these stars are going to be able to maintain that same level of just like low-key, relaxed, down-to-earth vibes or whatever? I don't even know what I'm trying to say here.
Well, yeah, because for one, they haven't all played together at the same time that much. You know what I mean? So they've all had to figure out who they are without their superstars on the floor. So now they're all just kind of in their groove, and it's working. So I think that, they're going to be just fine. It's going to be interesting to see, because now we see a 76ers that are going to give them, for sure, a run for their money. But I think they're going to be absolutely just fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. I feel like they're really falling into a groove. We're seeing that happen with a lot of teams right now, and I am expecting them to have a very successful postseason. But that wraps up Need to Know News. So Jackie, why don't we move into the post-up?
Yes, let's do that. Let's move into the post-up right now, because we're about to have a whole bunch of fun with this post-up, because this one, I know a bunch of y'all in the chat are Warriors fans, so somehow you're going to feel like this is us hating on Steph. That is not the case. They just looked really, really bad last night, because the Warriors were down bad at the half. They were down 61-29. Of course, the Mavs actually went on a 28-0 run. Like I said, it was 61-29 at the half. Luka had 39 points, and the Mavs ended up winning that game 133-103. Draymond, he did not have his best night. He didn't score any points, but as per usual, Draymond, when he doesn't score, he kind of does his thing elsewhere, and he did that last night. He pulled in 11 rebounds, 3 steals. Y'all know how much I love steals, and 3 assists and 2 blocks. So he was playing very well defensively, but it was not enough, and it's hard to come back being down 61-29, and you give up a 28-0 run off top. So y'all take a look at Steph on the sidelines. Is quite sad. He just got his towel down, a towel over his head down. This is not what you want to see from Steph, but you got to respect him. He definitely was feeling that emotion, and he didn't want us all to see it, which I get. Kevin Looney only had 2 points. Steph had 27, and Michael Mulder had 26, but it wasn't enough, obviously. So, it happens, unfortunately. But Steph's reaction, I think, is kind of telling of how he's feeling on the Warriors right now. That's at least what I personally think. And, of course, there were some reactions on Twitter to him sitting on the sideline like this. And it says, now this is the most important one, this bottom one. It says, first one says, this franchise needs to pay Steph therapy after every game. I don't know. He's hurting this season. And this one, if this was LeBron, y'all would clown him. And that's the truth. And that's the difference in people's mindset. If LeBron was sitting on the sideline with his towel over his head and down like this, it'd be like, oh, he's not there for his team. Oh, he's whining. Oh, he's this. But with Steph, they need to pay for his therapy. I don't understand why it's so different between the two like this. But it is. So, and then this one said, Steph is trying, Clutch Points, which is the one who posted this, says, man's trying his hardest to carry. And then Lethal Shooter says, I truly respect Steph as a superstar, could sit out, but giving everything he has to try to win says a lot about his character. Okay, I guess. I mean, that's kind of his job, but I don't understand why we're not actually giving him the same criticism we would give like a LeBron. But Devin, what did you think when you saw Steph on the sideline kind of down and out like this?
I feel bad for Steph. I hate seeing him so down. And it's interesting because whenever the Warriors are having these rough games, which we've seen happen more often than not, I feel like, we get two sides of Steph. We either see him taking it in stride, dancing on the sidelines like he did in that game. I forget who that one was against. Maybe it was the Raptors. But or we see him looking like this, where he's just like very, very dejected and down. And I imagine it must be really frustrating for him because he's not used to being on a team that isn't thriving and isn't this like major threat in the West. So I do feel bad for Steph. I hate seeing him look like that. It's really sad. And then you can also see Draymond's reaction there in that video where he's like, did you notice that?
Draymond's reaction is a little bit more what I would want to see, like just sitting there like, damn. Like, what do we got to do? Like, that's what I want to see more so than just sitting down and, you know, having your towel over your head and, you know, just looking, like you said, dejected. That I want to see more than that. Because, again, you know, that user that said that is right. If that had been LeBron, it would have been this whole thing. And it probably should be. Steph is still the leader of that team. You know what I mean? So he should, whatever, hold your head high. I forget the name of that college kid. This was a couple years ago. I forget what team it was, but his teammate missed a shot. It could have actually helped him win. So his teammate was walking away and his other teammate runs up and like pushes his head up and, you know, pats him on his chest, like, you know, hold your head up all the time. And that's kind of what you want to see from someone like Steph Curry. Like, you hold your head up and you show your teammates how to hold their head up. And then let's figure out how we don't have to end up and let a team go a 28-0 run on us off top. You know what I mean? So that's what I would have wanted to see from him more than just sitting there like, you know, kind of down and out. But that's just me. Go ahead.
I want to add, I do think Steph does try to be that person, but I feel like he's just at the end of his rope. Like, I think seeing all these different emotional highs and lows that we've seen from him where he's really, really angry, he's just kind of trying to be happy-go-lucky, he's really sad. I think that he tries very hard to be that uplifting guy for his teammates, but I think maybe he's just at the end of his rope. I think he's just probably exhausted.
Yeah, and I get it. But, you know, it's not a good look because the camera just zoomed in. I just would have loved that sad music playing while they were zooming in, you know, but it's extra. It was. But let's go on to this next one because I get tired of this narrative because it's just like the international hate of LeBron. I saw somebody in the chat said LeBron didn't carry a team, which, again, just shows how much you guys don't watch basketball if you actually really believe that. But look, those of y'all who hate on LeBron, y'all ain't new. There's nothing new under the sun. These old heads out here hating too. So Dr. J says he does not have LeBron on any of his top players list because he says LeBron is responsible for creating super teams, which when you really kind of know the history of Dr. J, that's a funny thing to say. But let me take a look at what he said.
Well, you look at, you know, LeBron and, you know, anybody he sort of picks with him to be, you know, playing with so many guys. He's the guy who has led the charge in terms of super teams being put together. Yeah. You know, when he put together a team in Miami, basically put together a team together in Cleveland as well, and put together a team in Los Angeles or whatever. Mm-hmm. So he could pick his own team. I ain't gonna pick his team. Yeah. I ain't there. Not bad about LeBron.
Yeah, I'm not saying LeBron would argue, because I know he would probably come back to me, but he will argue that these super teams always existed. If you look at all the championship teams, they've always had 2, 3, or even sometimes 4 All-Stars.
Players weren't picking their own teams.
So what? So if a GM picks a super team or if the player picks a super team, what difference does it make? Super teams still existed. That's number one. Number two, a lot of players did try to do this, but the NBA blocked certain trades and certain moves. So is that whose fault is that? So you could really blame it on the NBA. I'm just not a fan, of this whole narrative at all. But of course, there was plenty of haters out there. But most of y'all dwell here in the chat, so I just wanted to get this one person that got it right. He says, whoa, Doc, love you, but there have been super teams forever. The Celtics, Lakers, and Sixers were loaded at one time. The Pistons, Bulls, and Spurs had multiple Hall of Famers together. Don't blame King James. He just followed the blueprint. He perfected the blueprint. That's all that it was. He perfected the game, and he did it a little bit better. And then we have another good point that our producer showed to me just a little while ago that I wanted to drop in there too, because this is a good point as well. Did I get it in there in time, Leo? Okay, maybe I didn't get that tweet in there, but basically he was saying even Dr. J was on some super teams. So this just doesn't make any sense to me. And the fact of the matter is, what we see with the Nets, I don't like what we see with the Nets per se. There it is. So he says, a dude who battled Bird Celtics and swept the Showtime's Laker to get a ring on a team with 4 All-Stars and 2 MVPs saying this is wild as hell. And don't even get me started putting MJ on your all-time second team with Karl Malone. Julius, boy, what the hell are you doing? And that is a fact. Super teams are not new. They're new to a lot of younger fans, but they're not new in the NBA. And LeBron James is the most polarizing figure in the NBA, so people like to hate on him and blame things on him. But I hate to burst your bubble, but super teams are not new. They're just you've never seen somebody command the floor the way that LeBron James does, and now you have a reason to feel some type of way about it. But it's not new. So let me get on to this next one, because I see some of y'all in the chat are asking about this video. So let's just jump right on into this one, because this one has me convinced that it is Mac Jones whose mama said that she was going to speak with him, because don't forget, a drunk mouth speaks a sober mind. And this boy just sounds foolish as hell to me in this drunken video. Take a look. I don't know if you heard him. He said 100 mil, 100. So who's this 100 mil for? First of all, he looks one more time, Leo. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of anything that happened in that video. So to me, he seems a little bit off in some of the things that he says and does. This one though, this tweet from this next user, I think is important because it reminded me of something else. Because I thought, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, he's just a few cans short of a 6-pack. It's no big deal. But then this person brings up a very valid point. He said the ones downplaying this and his DUI are the same ones that are out drinking and driving almost nightly. This guy is trash in so many ways. If the Niners pick him, the fan base will riot. Think what you want. That does matter. I don't know if I think the guy is trash as far as, how he plays on the field. I don't know if I think that. But I understand what he's saying, because this reminds me of the Andy Reid situation with his brother Brett, or his son Brett. So if you don't know, in 2017, Mac Jones was involved in a car accident. He was driving drunk. Not only was he driving drunk, he had a fake ID so he could go out and drink. So he got charged with that, but there was no punishment for that, because y'all know I looked. I didn't see any convictions or anything of that nature. It seems like it just went away. So this is his mugshot, though. So I do have that, which leads me back to what I said before. Pretty sure it was his mama trying to speak for him, because he just has that "mama, can you help me" face. I'm pretty sure it was him. But again, that makes me think back to Andy Reid's son, Britt, because we know that we made excuses and excuses and excuses for him, and we swept everything under the rug until eventually he was driving drunk and had some drugs in his system. He ran into a car, and now this 4 or 5-year-old girl was in a coma for a while, and now she's going to have mental issues and not going to be living up to her full capacity ever in her life, because we keep giving this man passes, and then he detrimentally affected someone else's life. So that's my question for you, Devin. Is this something that we do need to take more we need to put more emphasis on, because we've seen this happen time and time again, where we gloss over these situations when these kids are in college. They come to the NFL, they get more money now and more eyes and more attention. They feel more entitled, and then something bad happens. So is this something we should address now, or do we just say, he was 19 and move on? Oh, you're muted.
Oops. I'm sorry. I didn't even realize. I don't remember doing that. But I think that this is definitely something that we need to pay attention to, because we see a lot of these young athletes who really try and stay on the straight and narrow. They're, these straight-laced kind of guys because they want to be taken seriously as they move into the NFL or the NBA or whatever professional sports league it is that they're trying to get into. But then you have somebody like Mac Jones who's getting out there. He's gotten in trouble for drinking and driving in the past, and he feels like empowered enough or whatever to sit there and let people continue to film him when he's like blasted drunk at a nightclub. Like, this is already the signs of problematic behavior, because I feel like a lot of these young athletes, even if they are going to a frat party and they're drinking with their buddies or whatever it is, they're probably not letting people film them like that because they know it would be a bad look. So this is just kind of one bad decision after another, and I think it is a sign of what could come in the future. And then I also just think it's interesting, maybe you already mentioned this, Jackie, but if this was somebody like Justin Fields who was acting like this, super drunk, I think the reaction would be a lot different. I don't think people would be as quick to brush it under the rug.
Yeah, maybe. And it's just one of those things where I get it, I get the whole, but when you're talking about drinking and driving, now, obviously he's done it before. He actually lied. And so to me, it's a step ladder for me. For one, he got a fake ID so he could drink underage. That's number one. Number two, he did that and he got in a car and he went out and he was driving. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but that's just lucky. Number three, now he's out here clearly plastered out of his mind and he's drunk again. So at some point, regardless of if you pick him up or not, you do have to address his drinking, because I'm telling you, if you don't, the second he gets into the NFL and he gets all that money, now the drinking is just going to increase, and it'll be a bad look for whatever team picks him up, even though I do think it's the 49ers. It'll be a bad look if he goes out and drinks and drives and gets in a car accident and hurts someone when all this material evidence is out there that you could have done something beforehand. It's going to look really bad. So at the very least, I think it needs to be addressed on some level. But let's move on to another college draft pick. Devontae Smith from Bama. He is entering the NFL draft. Now, he's entering as a wide receiver. I think he's getting a little bit of flack, though. He's 6'1", and he's 175 pounds. He's skinny, y'all. He's definitely skinny. But he said this about his weight. Let me show you this post from him. What he said about his weight. This is hilarious to me. He says, "We're not bodybuilders. It's football." So he doesn't really feel like he has to bulk up. I would disagree with that, because when you get into the NFL, them boys are big, and you need to be able to kind of take a hit and keep on ticking. But if at his size, he is small, and I know that is a concern because he's skinny. But muscle weighs more than fat. So Richard Sherman is 6'3", and he's 195 pounds. So he's only 2 inches taller. He's 20 pounds heavier. So he's not like super skinny, but just like a little bit more muscle mass, I think would do him some good. I personally wouldn't want an extra 20 pounds coming at me full speed, but that's just me. The reactions on Twitter were all over the place on this one. This user said there should be a size and weight limit in the NFL to prevent injuries and prolong careers. Tackles, let's call them hits, because it looks like cars hitting head on and are looking more and more like life-threatening each game. So I don't know if he's trying to say, let's get people to be smaller. Let's not have people be so big. I'm not entirely sure what he's talking about. But then let's go to this next tweet, which I think this user pointed out has some good points, because Steve Smith, 5'9", 185 pounds. Winfield, 5'9", 180 pounds. Deshaun Jackson, 5'10", 175 pounds. So, and then, of course, legendary Ray Rice, 5'8", 212 pounds. So he was shorter and a little bit more bulkier. But so, I guess what he's saying is like, look, if that's the size that he is, if that's the size that he's comfortable at, if that's the size that he plays his best at, then who cares that if he's small or not? Let him play at his best. I think that's what he's trying to say, although the way he said it was kind of weird. But Devin, what do you think? Do you think he's too little? Do you think he should put on some size? Or do you think if he plays fine at this weight, then he's fine?
I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. I feel like if he is playing fine at this weight, then who are we to say anything about it? But I also think that there's nothing wrong with building up athleticism and strength and not necessarily building up bulk or getting heavier or whatever it is, but just like, I don't know, working on yourself and continuing to improve your strength and what you can do on the field. But if this is working for him, I feel like, why not stick with it?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. And, he'll know really quickly. Once he gets in the league and he takes his first couple hits, he'll know, oh, I'm good at this weight. Or he'll be like, nope, it's time to put on some more muscle mass. And that's what I was thinking, because I think being that small is great until you get rocked across the middle by a professional NFL player who weighs whatever he weighs and is moving full speed. That's a little bit different to me. If I had to give advice, I would say bulk up a little bit. But again, if he can be successful at that weight, then do what you do and do it your way. So this next one is interesting as well, because I don't know if you guys are on this whole Bitcoin craze. I have invested in Bitcoin. I still don't fully understand, what is going on with Bitcoin. I do a lot of reading on it, and I understand that it's supposed to be the wave of the future. But this one from Sean Culkin is interesting to me, because he's from the Chiefs, and he says, I fully believe Bitcoin is the future of finance, and I wanted to prove that. I wanted to prove that, so he is having the real skin in the game, not just trying to make a quick buck. I will be converting my entire 2021 NFL salary to Bitcoin. That seems like a lot to me. That seems very excessive to me, because again, I think we're all just kind of learning about Bitcoin. I think we are just kind of seeing what it does, figuring out what it means. I don't think putting your whole salary in Bitcoin, because even I put a little, $150 in Bitcoin. And when I tell you I've gotten up to as high as $380 as my investment, and I've dropped all the way down to $90. So I personally would not feel comfortable putting my entire salary in Bitcoin. So I'm not with this one at all. But we have a couple of responses on this one, of course. This is the whole thing with Bitcoin was for developing an alternative currency which will beat inflation, but this currency in itself has become an investment and speculation, and that's the thing. It's speculation. We don't really know what it's gonna do. Why would you put your whole salary into this? I have one more tweet, and so he says, so what you mean is you'll be buying Bitcoin with the cash you get paid in, which is true. You can't. But even like if you guys go on betting sites, sometimes they will pay you out in Bitcoin if you want them to. So I don't understand this, Devin. I don't know. I see the risk. I get the investment, but your whole salary.
I think this is a bad idea. I think that investing in Bitcoin is a great idea in general. We saw former Seattle Seahawks offensive lineman Russell Oakland do this, but he did it for, I think, half of his salary or something like that. He wanted to receive half of his $13 million salary in Bitcoin. And I understand that because it's half, he's still going to have several other million to rely on and to invest in more traditional ways and to spend. But I think doing your entire salary into Bitcoin is just a big risk because we're still kind of trying to figure out how it works and what it all means. And maybe it's going to pay off in the end and more players are going to regret not making this same choice. But I think it is a seriously bold move. And maybe he already has a solid nest egg that he can rely on and live off of. So he's willing to take that chance. But if it were me, I don't think I would be doing this. I'd probably do maybe a quarter of my salary or a fifth of my salary because I'm pretty conservative when it comes to investments, even though I probably should be a little bit more risky.
Yeah, I'm conservative too. And I have a friend who texts me all the time and he's like, okay, now's the time to buy Bitcoin, put $500 here. And I'm like, $50. I'm not putting $500 on this Bitcoin. So because I just don't understand it enough yet. And it just fluctuates too much for me to feel that kind of security in it. So, but like you said, if he has that nest egg, more power to him. But for me, I'm like, whoo, this is okay. You go ahead. That's a lot to me. I wouldn't do it, but congratulations, I guess. So let's move on to this next one because we've seen this. We saw yesterday, I showed you a video in the post up of a coach getting mad at a call that the ref made, and then going out and sucker punching a parent. So we've seen these kinds of people get really upset with refs, and we know what that means. But now we are seeing that the NBA is supporting making a stance on this. So this first tweet says the NBRA supports the proposed Wisconsin bill that would make harassing and assaulting referees and umpires a Class A misdemeanor. So I just want to blow up what that bottom one says, so you guys can kind of really read what it says on this next post. And it says the National Basketball Referees Association supports the proposed Wisconsin state bill that would make harassing and assaulting referees and umpires a Class A misdemeanor. The increased verbal and physical abuse that officials at all levels have been subjected to in recent years has led to a reduction in the number of referees, and this bill would directly address and help correct that. The NBRA is fully behind the proposed legislation under consideration and hopes to see this approved and other states following suit. So this is an interesting thing because, immediately I knew exactly what people were going to be thinking. They were going to be thinking this was all about the NBA. And technically, I guess, in Wisconsin, yes, it would kind of target that. But this is definitely for, the lower levels. This isn't about the NBA. But again, people were going to think that. And this first tweet kind of shows that this is what, people thought. This first tweet says, I'm not condoning disrespect towards you, but supporting this bill states the NBA doesn't support your efforts. Your interpretation. Oh, there's one before that. There's one right before that. But basically, the first user was saying something to the effect of, this has almost nothing to do with the NBA referees. The things that are said and done to them would nearly never be under this law. It's mostly on lower levels, and they're just showing the support for it. So people were back and forth. People were basically kind of saying, is the NBA going to institute a law to prevent these bad calls from these refs? I don't think people really understood that this wasn't really going to impact the refs. I do agree, though, that the NBA needs to have something in place and a more immediate thing to address bad calls during the games. But this has nothing to do with the NBA per se. But I do understand it. At these lower levels where there's not, enough protection in there, some people do really get kind of butthurt about these calls that these refs make. So I understand that they need more protection from that. But let's move on to this next one, because this is actually my favorite one in the post up, because we saw her yesterday. We called her Little Kyrie because we didn't know her name at that time, but now we know her name. We do know her name, but I forgot to write it down, but we'll see it in a second because she's on TNT. She made it onto TNT, and I absolutely love her energy because she is so professional right now. She is ready to do a post game right now. She handled this like a boss, so take a look.
What is this work ethic like? How often are you dribbling a basketball? Who are you working with? How did it get to this level? I want the breakdown.
Yes, so I grew up in a basketball gym watching my sister play basketball, and I just wanted to be better than her, so I started working. I spent about 2 hours just on my dribbling and 5 to 6 hours just training, going my hardest, and I wanted to be better than my sister, so I got to work, and now I am where I am right now.
Awesome.
Liv, this is Uncle Shaq. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I can tell you're very focused and very dedicated. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions. 1, where are you going to college at? 'Cause I think you probably got it picked out. And 2, is it your plan to go to the WNBA, or do you have some other dreams?
Well, my education is very important to me. And I also, for college, I'm keeping my options open. And also, my goal is to become the first female in the NBA. Because obviously greatness is a process. So yes, I'd like to make it to the WNBA, but I'd love to make it to the NBA.
She's so, like Devin just wrote in the chat, she is so well-spoken. She is so focused. She knows exactly what she wants. This interview was great. If you have some time, go onto Twitter or YouTube and find her TNT. Her name is Olivia. And just find the Olivia TNT interview. She was so articulate. She's just a boss. And she talks about how Dwayne Wade ended up asking her how her and her sister compete. And Is she still working to get better than her sister? And she was like, I'm already better than my sister. And you could tell that the sister was in the background because she you heard this, in the background. So it's just a really good interview. Go watch it. But obviously her last statement is what stirred up a little bit of controversy because she said she wants to go to the NBA. And this is what a lot of people were saying. This is kind of the same sentiment that several people had, like, oh, good, promote something that makes the WNBA look even worse. A girl joining a men's game instead. Also, how does a 10-year-old get to be a phenomenon? I don't know how good a scout is. This girl is 10. She, I think the thing is we just saw how amazing she was. And you can tell, like she said, she spends 2 hours just on her dribbling, 5 to 6 hours on just working out. Obviously, to have that kind of dedication at 10 years old, it's a beautiful thing to see because you don't really see that in 10-year-old girls. But this is a legitimate question. This person said, I don't even think a female player could honestly thrive in even the G League. So, this whole debate came up, and it was one of those things where I respect her. I get it. She wants to play in the NBA because in her mind, and this is the reason why I think the WNBA struggles sometimes, because in her mind, and this is a little girl, and probably in the mind of a lot of other people, the excellence is in the NBA, not the WNBA. And I think that is what triggered a lot of people. And I understand that, especially for the women who are in the WNBA. So, Devin, what did you think when you heard her say she wanted to play for the NBA, not necessarily the WNBA?
I thought this is a 10-year-old girl with big dreams who's not thinking about feminism or what it means to be a great female athlete in a women's league. I think that people are getting mad over something ridiculous. When I was 10, I thought that I was going to either be an astronaut or a neurosurgeon. And yes, those were all avenues that I could have chosen to pursue, but it wasn't like I was seriously thinking about, how am I going to go and be like a woman on the moon or whatever. I think that people need to chill out. She doesn't realize the implications of saying that. She's not thinking about what does this mean for female basketball players or whatever. I think that people need to chill out. If this were a 20-year-old saying that, sure, let's have a conversation about what it means to be a woman in the NBA. Or, does that mean that there are no great female basketball players in the WNBA? It's just, but she's 10. Like, I'm actually shocked that people were starting this debate about this. She's a literal child.
Yeah. When I was 10, I was convinced I was going to be a wide receiver in the NFL. And my dad used to tell me all the time, like, well, you're a girl. And I was like, I don't know what that means. I'm going to be a wide receiver in the NFL. Like, I couldn't comprehend, I was 10 and that's what I wanted to do. I love football. I was going to be a wide, and I worked really, really hard. My brother, that's probably the best thing about having being the baby of 6 and having, 2 older brothers. They played football with me all the time. And neither one of them doused my dreams. They were just cool to have a little sister that, wasn't annoying and stuff. So, but, I got about 13. And when I hit 13, I actually went to play football, with some guys that were playing football. I got my first real hit at 13 and I was like, ooh, I don't know about this. I don't know. That hurt. And then when I was 19, they had an opportunity for the women's league and I went out for that. And this 280-pound woman hit me at full speed. And I was like, this ain't for me. It's not.
Oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you.
Your goals change. So, she's 10. So
yeah, people need to chill.
Right. All right. So that's all I have for the post up. Let's really quickly get into this, what we not going to do, because Bucky Brooks, we talked about this yesterday. He kind of pitched this idea that the Ravens should take the collegiate approach and, basically graduate, Lamar Jackson and play out through his rookie contract, get a collegiate player in right now. And then once that rookie contract is over, then level up that collegiate player. So we talked about this yesterday, like I said, but this is crazy to me because he's just in he's going into his 4th season right now. So Baker Mayfield is going into his 4th season and he was a Heisman Trophy winner in 2017. So maybe that's the reason we're not hearing about graduating him. But Lamar Jackson literally was the unanimous MVP of the league. Unanimous. Like, everybody voted for him. And now we're talking about graduating him and letting some rookie come in and take his spot. I don't understand that, because he has literally been in the playoffs every year since he's been a starter. Baker Mayfield just went last year. So I don't really understand the whole thing. But Marcellus Wiley pointed out that 5 years before Lamar Jackson, the Ravens were in single-digit wins the 5 years before he began as a starter. Ever since then, they've been in double digits, and they've been to the playoffs. He is number one in the NFL in terms of wins since he's been a starter. He's number one in rushings as a starter, and he's number two in third down conversions, which is a big deal. So I think Bucky just did the oldest trick in the book as far as sports commentary does. You just say something wild and crazy and see how people react to it, because if they're talking about it, then that means they're talking about you, which means they might watch your show. So I think this was intentional, but it's not just us that's talking about it, because Lamar Jackson clearly felt some type of way about it as well, because he posted this tweet and he says, "Bucky, we can box a little bit, but I won't buck." So he made it like he was laughing. But I think, personally, this was, sometimes you tell the truth in jest. And Lamar Jackson has heard this time and time again. He can't play in the snow. He's not good in winter. He can't win a playoff game. He can't get the Ravens over the hump. He's heard so many negative things about his specific career, even though he's done very well since he's been in the NFL. But I think even though he made it like, whatever, I think he's upset about this. And I think he's tired of hearing specifically sports commentators who doubt him the way that they do. And I think that this kind of struck a nerve with him, and he didn't appreciate it. So he put the laughing emojis at the end. But I think if he saw Bucky in the street, there would be no love. But the good thing is John Harbaugh on Tuesday, he said that they'll pick up a collegiate quarterback in Lamar Jackson's 5th year, which is the end of his contract. But they do see him being their quarterback going forward. But what we're not going to do, Bucky, is just take the low-hanging fruit and just say something wild and crazy about a guy that several sports commentators have doubted him in a crazy way. He deserves better. He's definitely been the unanimous MVP, and he deserves a little bit more respect than you are giving him. This was shameful. I do not like it, but that is all I've got for what we not going to do.
Jackie, thank you so much. We are ending the show right on time. I love it when we hit it like right at the moment that we're supposed to. You guys, we're going to be back again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time as usual. So tap the bell for notifications so you do get that little ding right when we're going live, and you can tune in and send us all your hate comments in the chat. Subscribe, leave a comment below, share this video with your friends, give this video a thumbs up, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. Bye.